What's up guys, TCG Guide here, and Konami is absolutely changing the game in the near future. This could quite possibly be the first real change in the actual format for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the time where we start to see a shift in classic or old school Yu-Gi-Oh! And what we have now will be modern Yu-Gi-Oh! This huge change up to a game that's almost 20 years old does have a lot of players really pissed off though. These new changes will completely leave the old meta strategies in the dust. XYZ, Synchro, Pendulum, and Fusion-based strategies will all totally need to be reworked. But if this change does have you upset, it doesn't mean that you have to leave the game altogether. You can always play old school Yu-Gi-Oh! And just keep adding in things that might make your decks a little better. In this way, it could be like Commander in the MTG community. Slightly different rules and strategies for deck building, but overall the same game. But enough of that, and on to the changes you need to know. First of all, the field, which really hasn't changed in the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, with the exception of adding Pendulum Zones, is getting a revamp. Pendulum Zones are now not their own space. Now they're going to take up 2 of your spell and trap zones. Those 2 spaces, the far left and far right on the spell and trap zone, can still be used like normal, but now if you're going to set the scales, you have to use those specific spots. Zone selection and where you place things on the field are going to have a much more significant impact on the game than ever before, but I'll get into that in a minute. Another new change is the separation of main deck monsters and extra deck monsters. Before, when you summoned a monster from your extra deck, it would just go right onto the field no problem. Once these changes go into effect with the TCG, that won't be the case anymore. Now they'll have to be summoned to extra monster zones, which are those 2 spots there in the middle. That's right, 2 extra monster zone spaces that are to be shared. Goodbye field full of XYZ monsters in one turn. Goodbye fusion combos that can end in an OTK. But there is still a way to get more extra monster zones. That's what the most subtle and yet most devastating of all the changes, link monsters. Link monsters, like Decode Talker here, add these little arrows that point to other zones, and those specific spaces are now extra monster zones. Okay, so link monsters are going to be a must in a lot of decks now. So how do I summon them? They don't have a level or a rank. What gives? Well, these go in the extra deck, so they can only be summoned in the middle of the board at first, and are summoned by their link number. Remember how I said card placement was going to be huge? Well, this is it. To summon these guys, you have 2 options. You can send material to the graveyard equal to its link number, so in this case, 3. Or, you can follow the card effect, like here with Decode Talker. A link 2 monster and an effect monster can be used as material. Those little arrows I mentioned earlier are called link markers. And when a zone is linked with a link marker, not only does it become an extra monster zone, it gets affected by the link monster's effect, good or bad. Another thing you might notice missing on link monsters is a defense stat. Link monsters under no circumstances can be in defense position, so they're essentially immune to any effect that would change its position. So no Book of Moon, no earthquakes, none of that for link monsters. A few things to keep in mind. If you have an extra deck monster summoned in a zone linked by a link monster, and that link monster gets destroyed, your extra deck monster stays. And if it gets destroyed later, you can special summon it to a main monster zone space. Only if it's being summoned from the extra deck does it have to go into an extra monster zone. Yes, that includes pendulum monsters that get destroyed. They have to be pendulum summoned to extra monster zones. I hope this cleared up the new rule changes to come, and I hope that even if you are upset about the changes, you'll still keep playing old school Yu-Gi-Oh! And continue to make memories with the game. I'm TCG Guide, and if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and let me know down in the comments what you think about the upcoming rule changes. What do you think about link monsters and link summoning? Personally, I like the look of the new mechanics, although I am sad that one of my all-time favorite decks, Fluffles, won't be playable without some serious retooling. But anyways, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and remember, for deck techs and card tricks, game tips and more, always check the TCG guide.